Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is the beginning of Era 2. We're super excited. We finally finished Era 1 after several weeks. We really wanted to make sure that you guys understood the characters to this story. And now we are ready for Era 2, the American Revolution. Change is coming. So let me start with a quick review or outline of the American Revolution. We will explore how money and unfair laws influenced the colonies to fight for independence from England. So we know within this era there's going to be disagreements that lead to war. So before we start, let's just start by looking at the word revolution. Revolution means to change. This change can be political, social, or economical. Political meaning changes in the government, social meaning people changing, and economical meaning the change in money. So we are going to see some kind of change during this era. And that's where we want to start today, okay? Let's take a minute to look at what the map looks like so far. You might recognize that this is the United States, and over here on the East Coast we have these images that represent the characteristics of the colonies. Here we have the Appalachian Mountains that act as a border between the colonies and the French territory, and the Mississippi River right here. So at this time in history, these large geographical features are being used as borders. All right, so let me go ahead and read what we're doing. Let me get this out of the way. We will outline the events that lead up to the greatest breakup in history. This is a love story, guys. It's like a major breakup. The first era was all about how they began their relationship, and now we're going to talk about how they break up. Why this is important? Various disagreements between the king and the colonies lead to war. So just think of it in a relationship. They have a disagreement, and finally they just fight and break up for good. And today you will complete a double point of view activity over the proclamation of 1763. So let's start with page 23 in your virtual notebook. Looks like this. We're going to be answering two questions independently and then sharing out. So let me switch over to the notebook. All right. So question 1 and 2 are here. Based on what you know from Era 1, describe the relationship between the colonies and the King of England. And number 2, what type of revolution, what kind of change do you think is going to happen? Okay, we're going to go ahead and pause here and share out. All right. So come back to the main screen where your teacher is presenting, and let's look at an outline together. You should be looking at your teacher's presentation. This era is about a breakup. So I want to outline it with you looking at this breakup cake that says it's me, not you. I hope that's never happened to you. Getting a breakup cake is very sad. Inside our breakup cake are all these ingredients. All of these events are going to be disagreements that lead up to final war. So with your teacher now, you guys are going to fill in these rectangles. Who is going to break up? Okay, so it would be the King of England and the 13 colonies. This is the biggest breakup in history. So the timeline here shows you in order what happens and how they lead up to finally a war. The king will be fighting for control. The colonies will be fighting for independence. And today we're starting with the French and Indian War, the first disagreement. This is a very short lesson, so we will be reading it together. The events leading up to the Revolutionary War created growing tensions between the colonies and their distant leader in England. The first event in this division was a different war over territory. The Ohio River Basin sits between the Appalachian Mountains and the Mississippi River. So remember that map we looked at earlier. Here we have the French territory, and here we have the 13 colonies. And as you know, land equals power. So we are going to have a conflict over this territory, and it is called the French and Indian War. England is going to fight France, but England's going to have some backup with the colonists, and France's backup is the native Indians. The England is going to win. Check this out. Before the war, we had this map of boundaries. Look at all that orange French territory. And after the French and Indian War, it's all purple. This is all British territory. French is pretty much, the France and the French are just kicked off the continent at this point. So if England and the colonists won, where's the disagreement? Well, the story's not over. The disagreement comes with this red line here called the Proclamation of 1763. After the French and Indian War, the king decided to allow Indians to remain in the Ohio River Valley and prohibited the colonists to cross the Appalachian Mountains in what he called the Proclamation of 1763. A proclamation means an official announcement. The king did this to avoid further conflict with natives. So the idea here is the colonists have fought for this territory with the king, and they won it because land equals power. But unfortunately, the king has told them they are not allowed to cross the mountains. Okay? So this is where we have conflict. All right? Today's activity is to write about the Proclamation of 1763 from the point of view of the king and the colonists. So here you have the king's speech bubble. If you double click, you're going to write why the king doesn't want the colonists to cross the line, and how does he feel about it? And here you have a colonist. You're going to explain from his point of view why they want to cross the mountains, and of course, why they think this law is unfair. So that does it for today. Tomorrow we're going to move on to our timeline to look at some of these acts that are further disagreements between the king and colonies. See you then.